It's Lisa from Been There, Got Out. And today's guest is another high conflict divorce coach and fellow New Yorker. Her name is Karen McMahon. She is the founder of Journey Beyond Divorce. And here she is. Let me get her on here and hopefully we'll be able to see each other really well this time. Okay. How to evict your spouse from your mental headspace. And I had started saying how that was like a huge issue for me in the beginning, is like always thinking about like what was going on with my ex and why is he behaving this way and what am I going to do, and more consumed with like the why versus actually taking care of myself and figuring out what I needed to do. So thank you, Karen, so much for coming on. I know I've been with you a couple of times, but
Yes.
Can you please introduce yourself officially?
Yeah, I would love to. So thanks so much for having me on. And hello, everybody. Karen McMahon. I am the founder of Journey Beyond Divorce. We're a team of coaches who help men and women navigate high conflict divorce before, during, and after. We've got a Journey Beyond Divorce podcast. And I love the work that Lisa, you are doing. And I'm really excited to be here with you today.
So I always love when we do the same thing, but we have different things that we take care of. So, and we work really well together. We always say a rising tide floats all boats.
That's it.
So Karen, today you're going to talk about, like, I love the title, how to evict your spouse from your mental headspace. First of all, why do you think that that's even important?
Yeah, well, one of the things I've noticed so much, both in myself with my own divorce and for 14 years coaching people, is when I ask a question, what is your desire for temporary shared parenting? The answer I always get is, well, my spouse says. And so, and I want to say to everyone listening, start noticing when you answer these questions, because what that means is that when I'm thinking about his or her thoughts first, reactions first, desires first, values first, then they are actually running my operating system. And here you are going to court and trying to negotiate, but before you even step into the court, you are already undercutting yourself if you don't realize and reclaim your mental space. And so we're making the biggest decisions of our lives. This is going on for months, years, for some people, God willing, not, but some decades. And if you're not making every decision based on your priorities, your values, your perspectives, then you're like on his or her side of the aisle, like fighting against yourself. And you don't even realize it. And we don't realize it because we feel such a victim. Well, he says this, well, she does that, well, I can't because. And when we slow it down and go, well, wait a second, let me start looking at even little things, even day to day. So in the very early stages, setting a boundary in the household, discussing the master bedroom and moving into the basement, or I moved into the attic for 3.5 years. Like these little things. Well, if I do that, he's going to get so mad. Who's running my operating system? He is. And so that's why it's so important, because when we allow our spouse to squat between our ears, which is what they're doing.
What a great line.
They are running our operating system, and we are constantly behind the 8 ball. We're triggered, we feel disempowered, and we're blaming them, and they're not to blame. That's our work to do. And the question is, how did I get here? Because there's so much self-judgment that immediately follows. As soon as someone goes, oh my God, Karen, you're right, they start beating the shit out of themselves. And so it's so important to understand how we got here, and then how do I reclaim my mind? How do I step back into the control of everything that I think, say, and do?
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, it's not a matter of time necessarily. And we just got a comment from someone who says that they're 10 years after divorce and still cope with this topic.
Right. And so first of all, I want to acknowledge you, because I've worked with people who are 8, 10, 12 years out, and they've been suffering. And one of the problems, Lisa, this is why I'm so passionate about this. You go, you spend dozens or hundreds of hours in court, you spend thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then you have a piece of paper. But you're not free. If you haven't done this work, you're not free. So the person who's 10 years post-divorce, your children are probably already heading into college and emancipated, and you're going, I spent the money, I went through the misery, and I'm divorced, but I'm not. I'm not. He's still in control. She's still in control. And so when we start looking at how did we get there and how do we begin to unweave that? And I think part of it, I'll say on a very foundational level, is when we're in these high conflict relationships, and you and I know this, it's like their behavior is so noisy, so displeasing, so over the top that all of our focus is external.
Mm-hmm.
We understand. We're so crystal clear on what's wrong with them.
Right.
But the gift, right? The treasure is in reflecting back. I married this person. I chose to stay with this person, not with a critic, with compassion. I chose to stay with this person for all this time. So what's going on with me? Why am I so afraid to make a decision? Why am I so afraid to start the divorce? Why am I so afraid to demand what I know I deserve? And it all comes down to who's actually running my operating system.
I think also when someone has been out for a while, I know with many of our clients and also with ourselves at times, there's a lot of shame with still feeling this way because it's not easy. We know it's not easy to get them out of your headspace. Again, I love that line, have them squatting between your ears. But I think the shame also comes from other people where they're like, it's been 10 years. Like, aren't you over this yet? Like, move on, move on.
Right.
Don't you feel like a lot of your clients, and probably you yourself might have experienced that, where people are like, everyone else has moved on, but there's a really big difference between coming out of an abusive relationship versus a normal divorce where everybody calms down and is focused on moving on with their lives? Because, you know, our specialty is legal abuse, where you're still stuck with this person in the legal system. And so you can't I mean, you're dealing with survival mode still years
Absolutely.
later.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important. And I think that's why it's so hard when we go into the court system and attorneys don't understand it, judges don't understand it. There's such a lack of comprehension of what that does to someone to spend. I mean, I was only 8 to 10 years in my marriage. I work with people who are 25, 35 years. Mm-hmm. And that's like this indoctrination that's happened over decades. What I will say, however, is even if, and especially if you're still on the battlefield, it's the best time to start doing this work because, you know, one of my favorite sayings is every upset is a setup. And so where better to be triggered than when you're preparing for court, when you're going toe to toe with him. And so what I mean by that is when I'm upset, I can say he's an SOB, he's a liar, he's a manipulator, whatever. But the question is, how am I being triggered? Am I standing in my power yet? Am I shying away from my voice? Is my fear taking over my desire? And when we begin to do that, now obviously you want to do this with someone like Lisa or me or your therapist, where you're in a very safe container. Because what happens is the minute you begin to evict their voice, your inner critic swoops in like a son of a gun. And so there's two things we're battling. One is, I don't know about you, but I was called every dirty, nasty, disgusting name under the sun. And so for me to rebuild my self-confidence, regain my self-esteem, required that I be in a safe container, required that somebody saw me and heard me and reflected the real me back to me so that I began thinking my thoughts. And, you know, we have a course, Reclaim Your Mind, Evict Your Spouse from Your Mental Space. And we also have a free gift for your listeners. But in the course, we talk about 7 distortions. And I'll just mention one of them right now. When they tell you you're the problem, you believe them, right?
Always. I mean, that's what you've heard the whole time.
the whole time. It's like, you're so, and then fill in the blank. You're so fat, you're so stupid, you're so insecure, you're so, why are you so sensitive? Well, maybe because you've been calling me an effing C for a while. I'm so sensitive. Why? So we're always so, and so we begin to believe it over the course of time. And then you even have, especially victims of domestic violence, who say, I could keep the house better. I'm not the best cook. And we've received it. We are now, they're fully in our head, and we're just abiding. And so understanding how that happens, and if I could, as briefly as I can, I want to say, you did not let this off the grass. You did not cause this. Whatever your family of origin stuff is, you were set up. We were all, I've yet to meet a client who wasn't set up for the marriage that they got into. And it's not, and I was just on a program this morning where she said, all of your pain and all of your struggle, those are your, how did she called it soul contracts. It's like everything we struggle against is the thing that, my struggles brought me to where I am today. I am thrilled with where I am today. Your struggles brought you to where you are today, like touching and healing and helping the world one person at a time. If every one of your clients, mine, our listeners, our followers understood that whatever pain you're going through is going to be part of the magic of how you heal your children, heal the world, have your purpose in the world. And it sucks. It's hard, it's painful. And sometimes I'm a Christian, so I'll say, if anyone knows the life of Job, like for hundreds of years, this man suffered before he, like, that's what it feels like sometimes, like we're all living this life of Job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a note taker, and as you've been talking, I'm like trying to look at you and write at the same time. So one of the things that I think is an issue, especially with victims of domestic violence, is they have lived in these coercively controlling relationships where they do honestly feel at this point that their ex is the authority, and that's what makes it so hard to get them out of your head. Being in one of those relationships makes it difficult to figure out what your values are. Sometimes people can't even decide what to choose on a menu because they've been conditioned for so long. So how do you even start to work with somebody who's been living like that, who's like, well, I don't know what my goals are. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm even supposed to want.
Right. And I have a fellow I'm working with on the West Coast, and he said exactly that to me. And this is a very successful individual. And he said, I don't know how to create a life. I don't believe that I'm going to be able to, create a life for my kids. And he did 23 years in an abusive relationship. And it's so interesting. It's kind of like, if I shut down and never ran, it's like, can I run? No, I could probably run like less than a third of a block, and then I'm not going to be able to do it. So when we haven't done something, when somebody else has been making the decisions, part of it is we haven't used those functions. And then part of it is our belief in ourselves, because then we start saying, I can't. Well, of course you can. We all can. I'm going to give a very simple, super powerful exercise to whoever is listening right now. This is something I do that has been such a game changer for so many of my clients who are in this position. I want you to take a piece of paper, and I want you to write down 25 positive adjectives about yourself. Now, you're probably going to get stuck at about the fifth one. Usually after coaching with a client for 20, 30 minutes, we start doing this together. I already can come up with a dozen just based on meeting them for a half hour when they can't come up with 5. And so this is the second part of it, is you ask 2 loved ones, a child, a sibling, a parent, to do the same, because what you're doing is you're listening to the toxic individual tell you who you are. But there are people standing on your sidelines, heartbroken for you, who know what a gorgeous human being you are, who know your strengths, who know your colorfulness and your creativity and your adventure and your passion and your kindness and everything else. And so please, if you're so stuck and you're believing your ex, even if You only get to number 5 on yours. Ask 2 people. Now, the first thing that I get is, I can't do that. That's embarrassing.
Right?
And so I want to say this to you. If your best friend said, I'm really struggling with self-esteem and self-confidence, would you be willing to sit and talk to me about what you see in me that I can't see in myself? Would you say no? Would you say stop bothering me? Would you say get over yourself? No, you would be like,
Never.
girlfriend, guy friend, 100%, I'm there. So this might be stepping out of your comfort zone. All possibility lies on the other side of our comfort zone. Step out of your comfort zone.
Ask
Ask
for
2 people who
help.
are
Right.
safe and
Right.
who you trust. And when you get their list and you start building yours, you may not have 75 words, but you're going to have over 50 words. And that, girlfriend, guy friend, that is who you are. And so that's just a baby step into trusting and believing. And then the final piece is print it out, keep it in your pocket, keep it in your bedroom drawer, keep it where you need it. And when you're in self-doubt, you pull that out and you let your heart receive what people who are healthy and know you and love you think about you. And you will find it like a soothing balm.
I would say not to put it in your drawer. I would say put it on your bathroom mirror and next to your computer because I think that's something, especially in the throes of this, that you need constant reminders and you might forget if you put it away. So sorry to disagree with that part, Karen,
Yeah,
but I love
100%.
the exercise. I love the exercise. So, so important and so
And
necessary.
it's a baby step. I think that the other thing I want to say, Lisa, is if I walked out the door and got hit by an 18-wheeler, I would not be running down the boardwalk next week. I would barely be able to sit up in my bed. We need to start being more compassionate for what we've been through. So if you're sitting here and going, I have no belief in myself, you have been slammed by an emotional 18-wheeler. You're in triage. Don't
Mhm.
expect to take giant leaps. Take baby steps and then celebrate your baby steps. Don't poo-poo them, don't diminish them. Celebrate your baby steps because that's the beginning of your new path and your strength.
Yeah, love it. I think about this hashtag we have. It's called From Puddle to Ninja. And most people arrive on our doorstep. We call them a puddle. They're a mess. They're crying. They're cursing. There's all kinds of, and they're apologizing for all of it. And we're like, this is totally normal. And it is, isn't it so rewarding to see the transformation? And like you said, celebrate those baby steps. So we have a monthly newsletter that goes out in the beginning. We have something called From Puddle to Ninja, and we celebrate like the wins from the past month in court, but also out of court, because people are dealing with things with their kids being turned against them. I mean, awful, awful things that do not go away once that paper is signed or handed from a judge.
Yeah.
So it's important to recognize all the stuff that doesn't just disappear post separation. And I know I thought at the beginning, if I could just get this divorce done, like I would have peace. No way.
You know,
And that's
well,
what you're talking about.
and on the other side of my divorce, one of the first things that happened was my son, who was maybe 11 or 12, got really angry and really violent. He was like a walking raw nerve going through the divorce. Mine was 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And go back to every upset is a setup. What I realized was I still had a lot to learn about boundaries, about my communication. And so my new struggles, because I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I divorced the problem and here I am facing it again.
Oh,
We are never going to legally divorce any of those really important things. Our emotional well-being, the way we see ourselves in the world, the way we choose to be in the world, the way we choose to parent, all of that that's that inner work. And that's why it's so important, right? And so when you see someone go from this broken puddle to feeling so excited, like that's why we do the work we do, because it's not about the piece of paper. There are no divorce police walking up and down the streets who are going to back you up when they break all those agreements.
right.
Your boundaries are going to back you up. Your self-confidence is going to back you up. Your ability to communicate effectively, that's what's going to back you up.
I'm glad you said when instead of if, because we know it's going to happen.
Completely.
It's going to happen, and learning how to deal with it, not how to avoid it. AI can't do it for you. Like, you have to learn how to deal with this stuff because it doesn't go away. Even when the kids age out of the system, it doesn't go away sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm going to be totally transparent with your audience. I dealt with a lot of abuse. Legal abuse was not one of them. I am 18 years post-divorce. I can tell you that the pittance of child support I did get often came only a couple of times a month. I can tell you that my ex told my grade school children that he was going to be put in jail because of me. So there was this ongoing abuse that continued to happen for all of those co-parenting years. And I would say fairly early on, I was able to live in peace. And it was only because it's so hard to do that in a work, to roll up your sleeves, to really learn, like just from childhood. I grew up with an alcoholic dad and a rageaholic mom. All the shit I brought to my marriage table was there after the divorce. I had to clean that up, or I was just going to bring it into my next relationship. And that's the beauty of this work, is we're helping you with all the logistics, and you have to go to court and you have to know this stuff and you have to do it. If you do that instead of, or only, and not that inner work, at the end of the day, you're going to still feel imprisoned by the other person. When you break free, it's just got to be the most liberating thing in the world.
Well, also what you're talking about, because legal abuse is our sweet spot, to say it in a weird way, but but you are going to do way better in court if you do this other work. Your confidence has a lot of impact on how you put together your documentation, how you present properly, just everything. Like, it affects your mindset, affects everything. And it's not quick. It takes time, and it takes doing a lot of things, like you said, that you're not comfortable with. I've heard, even yesterday, we were talking with a client, she's like, I don't know if I could do that because that's not who I am. And I said, it doesn't matter, because we're both New Yorkers, you know, and I said, harsh New York reality check, it doesn't really matter what you are, because what you've done has hurt your case. So we have to do something differently. Nobody cares who you are, except in terms of being the best co-parent ever, and how you're going to navigate this with a really difficult ex. So we can work on that. You can learn it. But to just think I need to stick with my instincts, that hasn't gone so well.
No. And you know, I think a part of my Reclaim Your Mind program also begins to touch on the inner child. And so this is deep, but I'm going to just try and plant a seed here. If you were to measure your self-love on a scale of 1 to 10, for everyone listening, where would you measure it? When I was going through my divorce, and even post-divorce, I would say, you know, if I got to 5, I was lucky. Like, I called myself an effing idiot. I had a really harsh inner critic. And I really didn't know a lot about self-love, but when I found out, I was like, yeah, that tank's empty. When we don't, and so our inner child is really whatever we grew up with. There's a little scared Karen, little K, and she's the one who reacts. I often say my inner child is driving the bus, and that's dangerous, right? Mm-hmm. And so we come from this triggered reactive place. And when we can start noticing our inner critic and being really self-compassionate and really kind to ourselves, and really understanding how we got where we are, our self-love grows. And as your self-love grows, with guidance and direction from people like Lisa and Chris, you're going to enter court with such a different energy. You're going to know that not only am I asking for this, I deserve this, I am expecting this. Like, it completely changes when your self-love is filled up. We all begin to manifest the abundance in a positive way of what we want. And so, you know, I'm always such a big stand for doing that inner work. And it's exhausting, right? It's like I'm staying up late at night. I've got my job. I've got my kids. I'm trying to figure out this freaking legal paper, and I have to do my inner work too. And the beauty of it is the triggers are there. You just need to take a few minutes with every trigger to be kind to yourself, to tend to that younger self that's inside who's flailing and freaking out.
Yeah, as you were talking about how it does have an impact going into the court system, I know a lot of our clients end up going pro se because they run out of money, and it's like, what else are you going to do? But part of that, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. But oh my gosh, sorry, Karen, I
I
totally
do that all
lost
the
my.
time.
Let me go to the next question. Somebody said, why does it happen to us? Oh, sorry, now I remembered it. Okay, so going into court, being pro se, when you're up there against a bully and opposing counsel that's a bully, we always say you want to focus on what you're asking for and why you're entitled to it. And I think a lot of people think that entitled is a bad word because it's associated with narcissism. But when you are asking for something, your whole case is explaining why you deserve to get it. And you do deserve to get what you're asking for, depending on what it is. But if your lawyer has said that's fair, why shouldn't you ask for it? Why shouldn't you use the word I'm entitled to it?
And if you were standing in front of the same judge and you were fighting for your kid, come on, mama
Are,
bears, papa bears
are,
up there, you would be such a strong advocate for them. And yet
right. Aren't
ourselves,
your kids are entitled to it, right? If it's hard for you to say I'm entitled to it, my
yeah,
kids are entitled to this.
yeah.
Yeah.
If we can't fight for ourselves, fight for our kids, and we come along.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question that we got was, why does it happen to us? What is for you the higher purpose of experiencing that high conflict divorce?
Okay, so I am not right or wrong, but this is my perspective on life. There is not a crisis that isn't for us. Now, I'm not saying there aren't horrendous crises, but what we do with them, and you can see how many examples uh, where people take, like there's a motivational speaker, I forget his name, he was born with no limbs. And he was miserable and he was depressed and he went through hell. And then he decided he had to make a choice. He now makes millions of dollars. He's married to a stunningly gorgeous woman, and he is literally a body with two flaps of arms and two
I've
flaps
seen
of
that
feet.
guy. Yeah.
Somebody else becomes a heroin addict and dies. Now, both of their crises are horrible. Oh my God, we would never wish this on anyone. It's what we choose to do with them that makes all the difference. And so for us, it's high conflict divorce. For somebody else, it's the loss of a child or the devastation of some finances or a cancer, and you lose your sibling, whatever it is. But what we do with those and how we grow through that um, is where that's where the gift is. And so what I said earlier is we've been set up. I've yet to meet someone who came from a really healthy family, had a really healthy adult life, who just found themselves married to a narcissist. It doesn't work that way. Like there are the coping mechanisms that most of us created in our families of origin made us the people pleasers, the codependents, the perfectionists, the conflict avoidance, right? Like all of the things that a narcissist or a high conflict personality is like, you're my gal, you're my girl. Like I'm a taker and you're a giver and I'm a taker. We're perfect. Those are the things that situations like high conflict divorce are an invitation for us to heal, to refine, to cleanse, and then to go forth. And for me, Lisa, break generational chains. If
Absolutely.
my children cannot experience the divorce my mom experienced, the marriage my mom experienced, the marriage and divorce I experienced, if I could be a stand for my children and grandchildren, if as a group we can lower the second and third divorce rates because we have more and more people learning their own part in the first divorce, how can that not be a good thing?
That is awesome. Okay, so someone asked if this live would be saved. Absolutely. I'm going to post it right after we're done. And I know, Karen, you have a really busy day. So before we end, and I have to have you back on because you're so inspiring.
Thank you.
But can you tell people how to find you and what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So Journey Beyond Divorce is our podcast. JBDdivorcesupport.com is our website. We're actually going live with a brand new website within the next week or two. So I'll let you guys know about it too. Maybe you can post that for us. And And I would say that if this is resonating with you, we have a guide for evicting your toxic spouse from your mental space, and it's free. And so I'll send the link to you, Lisa, and maybe anyone who posts, you can share it with them. And it would be our gift to you to just help you unweave from that a little.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Karen. This has been a pleasure, as I knew.
Thank you. Thank you. And best of luck to everyone tuning in.
All right. Take care.
See you soon.
Bye.